August 18, 2015, in the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Board Secretary, this meeting has been advertised according to the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
You take roll call.
Mr. Boucher. Here. Mrs. Backer.
Here.
Mr. Bloom. Mr. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mrs. Trapp.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
I am present.
Mr. President, I move that we retire into executive session.
Need a second?
Second.
Need to read the resolution.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, permits the exclusion of public from the meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education, Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of any action upon herein after specified subject matter. General nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items. Also under that is Sayreville Principal Association discipline, attorney-client privilege, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program and student discipline, notice of claim and tuition reimbursement. Under negotiations, SEA grievance 2015-50, SEA contract 7116 through 63019, and student discipline, Sayreville War Memorial High School student. Mr. Boucher.
Yes.
Mrs. Backer.
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mrs. Trapp.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
And Mr. McEnroe.
Yes, we'll go into executive.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution is
2015 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Roll call.
Mr. Boucher.
Here.
Mrs. Backer.
Here.
Mrs. Bloom. Mr. Brzezinski.
Here.
Mr. Sayak.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mrs. Trapp.
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
And Mr. McEnroe.
I am present. Can you summarize the executive session, please?
In executive this evening, under personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, one matter, Sayreville Principal Association, a discipline matter, attorney-client privilege, various legal issues associated with the Sayreville War Memorial High School football program, and student discipline. Another matter was a notice of a claim, and the last one under that was tuition reimbursement. Under negotiations, SEA grievance number 2015-50, and the Sayreville Education Association contract 716 through 6 of 19. And another matter under student discipline, Sayreville War Memorial High School student.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any presentations this evening, so we'll go right through the agenda. Everybody should have received the monthly technology and maintenance and work order reports. Anybody have any questions, comments about those? Seeing none, everybody also should have gotten a copy posted the July 21st regular executive session meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, deletions, additions to the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to accept and file.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
I apologize. Who moves?
Mrs. DePinto and
Moved in,
Mr.
Mr. Walsh.
Brzezinski. And you could just
Mr.
take a roll
Balka?
call vote.
Yes.
Mrs. Backer.
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Sayak.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mrs. Trapp.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe.
Yep. Dr. Labby, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. McEnroe. We have quite the ambitious agenda. So beginning with Vision 2030 Finance and Infrastructure, beginning with number 11, Board of Education members, we're asking you to approve 15 separate purchase professional services agreements. You can find that on page 3, and those are from July 1, 2015 through June 30th, 2016. Number 12, which can be found on page 4, we're asking you to approve a contract with our before and after care provider from September 1st, 2015 through June 30th of 2016. Number 13 on page 4, we're asking you to approve our physician that will attend all of our varsity football games. Number 14, we're asking you to approve district tuition rates for the 2015-16 school year. You can find that on page 4 as well. Followed by number 15, which is our non-public funding for the 2015-16 school year. That's on page 5. Items 16 through 21 are contracts based on the unit bid price, the lowest responsible for bids, and that includes our bread and rolls contract, our milk contract, paper supply contract, groceries contract, cleaning contract, and our snack contract. And that can be found on page 5, each one of those motions. Moving along, items 22 and 23 on page 6. We're asking you to declare some equipment from the Truman Elementary School obsolete, as well as some athletic equipment from the high school. Number 27, we're asking you to approve our 2015-16 admissions for athletic events rates. Number 29 on page 7, we're asking you to approve the sale of a bus, a minibus. Number 30, we're asking you to approve a contract with Nicholas Pizzulli. If you remember, Board of Education members, he was our interim athletic director. We're asking you to approve a purchase professional agreement contract with him to provide consultation to Ms. Taylor, our newly appointed athletic director. Number 31, we're asking you to approve a donation of a new school sign at the Sayreville Middle School, donated by the PTO. You can find that on page 7. That also includes the installation. So the donation is the sign as well as the installation costs. Number 32, we're asking to approve a contract with the Middlesex Regional Ed Services Commission for several students that will go to a shared time transition program service. If you're not familiar with that, some of our children with disabilities, half of their day they spend out in the community learning vocational skills, learning independent living skills, and learning life skills. Number 33, we're asking you to approve a settlement agreement with a former transportation worker. And that can be found also, I believe, on page 7. Numbers 34 through 38, we're asking you to approve several facility usage permits, 4 of which will be in accordance with our fee schedule. So we'll be generating some revenue from that facility usage. So 4 of those, they are the last 4, will be in accordance with our fee schedule. Number 39 on pages 8 through 9, we're asking you to approve our high school athletics practice schedule as well as our middle school practice schedule for the 2015-16 school year. Number 41, we're asking you to approve the Sayreville War Memorial High School marching band competition trips, and that comes with transportation costs. That can be found on page 9. Similarly, we're asking you to approve on number 42 and page 10 the use of 4 buses so that we can take our newly appointed first-year teachers on a tour of the borough, which is something that's very, very popular with our teachers. Numbers 43 through 45, we're asking you to approve some transportation contracts. That can be found on page 10 as well as on the addendum. We added some to the addendum, so you can find those on page 10 and the addendum. And number 44, we're asking you to approve 2015 extended school year out-of-district placement tuition, as well as some related services and supplementary services that took place for some of our extended school year students this past summer. And finally, we're asking you to approve 50 2015-16 private or public out-of-district tuition placements. And that can be found on page 7.
Dr. Labby, we have
yes.
one additional item that was discussed in executive to add to finance.
Yes.
I had number 46 to the addendum. The Board of Education hereby denies Sayreville Education Association grievance number 2015-50.
Any question on Vision 2030, finance and infrastructure?
I have a question.
Mrs. Backett?
The tuition rates, are they an increase over last year? It's number 14, page 4.
Our tuition rates.
There definitely changes, Mrs. Bacco, but I don't, some may have gone up, some may have gone down. It's based on a state formula. I don't have that with me.
Can you let me know?
Yeah, I can send it to you. I have it in my office.
And Mrs. Bacco, I'll add to that a little bit. Mr. DeAndre and I had a conversation over the weekend because I was a little bit in shock of the fact that, and again, Mr. DeAndre has a specific formula that he has to punch in through the state. I found it odd that our full-day preschool children with disabilities program costs less than our half-day. It has a lower tuition than our half-day program. I don't know how that works out that way, but Mr. DeAndre has a strict formula to follow when he calculates tuition.
Okay, and you had sent out an email that you wanted to hire another contractor, John Russell. I don't see it in this list. Is it not on the agenda?
That's not on the agenda.
So you changed your mind, or
It's just not on the agenda.
do you still plan on doing it?
Based upon the discussion that we had in our finance and infrastructure meeting, I would want to discuss it with our committee one more time before I determine whether to do so or not. I know that Mr. Balca expressed some resistance toward it, and I know that you also expressed that too. So, I want to be careful about bringing anything to the board if it's not fully recommended by a committee.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mr. Syed.
Mr. DeAndre, I need to abstain on the check for Premier Printing Solutions. And then either Mr. DeAndre or Dr. Labby, the middle school sign, was that scheduled for replacement as a result of the donation, or was it?
It wasn't
'Cause
scheduled
I've seen it
for,
down, is why
but
I'm asking.
we were having some difficulty. I apologize to any of our audience members or Board of Education members who a couple of months ago saw what was on the sign. Some kids were having some fun, and they changed some letters around and formed some inappropriate words. And we found that we had a problem with the way we were securing that sign. And Mrs. Jakubik had a great meeting with her PTO, and they were gracious enough to make this donation for us. So it's not something that we had planned on, but I do believe it was something that was necessary and needed.
Gotcha. I didn't know about the first part. I just saw the sign down.
Mr. Balca sent me a text back in July.
But the words are spelled correctly.
The good news is.
Mike,
Section B.
one more, Mike.
Oh,
They were
sorry.
spelled correctly, but they were inappropriate words.
Mr. Ball.
Emilio, number 6, page 2, abstain.
I apologize. Number,
6, page 2.
yep.
Number 33, page 7.
Did you say 33?
Yes.
Number,
Abstain, yep.
number 30,
33.
33.
Yep. And number 46 on the addendum. All abstain.
Abstain on all three. Okay.
Emilio,
Yes.
page 7, number 30, I'm voting no. I think the rate's too much money. And number 46, I'm voting no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Section B.
Moving on to Vision 2030 student achievement. We're asking you on item number 1, which can be found on page 13, we're asking you to approve curriculum for the courses that are offered on the agenda there. There are several, most of them physical education, health related. Number 2, on page 13, we're asking you to approve textbooks and supplemental book lists for the 2015-16 school year. Number 3, we're asking you to approve several new and revised curriculum guides, and that can be found on page 13. Number 4, we're asking you to approve the removal of the grades K through 8 language and learning disability. That's the moderate language learning disability program from the district special education programs continuum. And we're asking you to approve the new 2015-16 special education programs continuum. You can find that on page 14. Number 5, we're asking you to approve the title changes for several courses offered at the high school. That can be found on page 14. Number 6, approval of school hours effective for the 2015-16 school year, found on pages 14 and 15. Number 7, approval of the Sayreville War Memorial High School to host a New Jersey Leadership Summit. We're real excited about this, sponsored by Jostens. And that will take place on October 7th, 2015. That can be found on page 15. Number 8, we're asking you to approve the dues and entry fee for NJSIAA for the 2015-16 school year. Number 9, which can also be found on page 15, we're asking you to approve the list of the game schedules, practice schedules, and the schedule of officials' fees for the 2015-16 school year. And finally, number 10, we're asking you to approve the Arlith Elementary School to hold a fall beautification day, and that will be on September 26th, and you can find that on page 15.
Mr. Sines.
Dr. Labby, I know you've communicated this before, but if in your next round of updates, if you could re-communicate it to the parents again about the hours change for schools. Also, the fact that kindergartners will not be starting on the first day of school. I heard from some parents that they were telling it particularly affected parents with older siblings because they were telling their kindergartner, you're going to get to go to school with your big brother on the first day, and they weren't aware of that change. And also that the Our Schools manual will not be coming out and that information will be online. Like I said, I know you've communicated already, but we got to keep telling them.
Sure. Absolutely. And in fact, I believe the kindergarten orientation letters either have gone out or will be going out this week. Obviously, you know that our kindergartners will start a day later. In fact, our preschoolers will as well, so that we can hold kindergarten and preschool orientation on the 3rd. That way, our students get a chance to meet their teachers in the afternoon, get acquainted with them. Their parents get to meet the teachers, get to see the classroom before they send the children in the next day. And we really feel that that will help a lot with the separation anxiety that many of our toddlers and early childhood students go through.
Has that been sent out, or when is it going out?
The
No?
preschool letters have already been sent out, and I believe that the kindergarten letters either have been sent out or they will be sent out this week.
I'm sure the working parents especially want, they have schedules they have to work around. I have a question.
Mrs. Beck.
For number 5, the science changes, what prompted the changes in the titles?
To help with graduation requirements for students. Earth science does not satisfy the science graduation requirements, and it's essentially the same course. It's a difference of 1 unit, and so we changed the title to environmental science, and we will have for the next board meeting the new curriculum for environmental science for approval.
Okay.
It's the same text.
It's the same text. It's basically, it's just taking out 1 unit that was in earth science and replacing it with a different one for environmental, and that will meet the high school graduation requirements for the state. And we had to change the semester course to just the title to differentiate it from the other, that it's essentials. It's not a full-blown environmental science.
Okay.
But the full year course will satisfy high school graduation requirements.
Great. Governance. Number 1, we're asking to approve the Integrated Pest Management Report submitted by Mr. Pantiliano, who is, of course, our Director of Facilities and Operation. That is an annual report. You can find that on page 16. Number 2, we're asking to approve the authorization of the superintendent, myself, to appoint staff necessary prior to the opening of schools. That can be found on page 16, and that is an annual motion that we put in before our next Board of Education meeting, which, of course, is September 1st. And number 3, we're asking you to approve the Memorandum of Agreement, which is, again, another annual thing that we do with law enforcement. And that, of course, is signed by myself, Mr. McEnone, the Board of Education President, the Chief of Police in Sayreville, as well as the Middlesex County Prosecutor. Any question on governance?
Yes. Number 3, is that for the SRO officers? Is that the agreement?
No, that's not for our SRO officers.
Okay.
No, that's a memorandum of agreement, basically, whereas we all sign off saying that we'll cooperate with one another during any kind of matter that involves all 3 agencies. Okay, moving on to Vision 2030 personnel. We do have a retirement. I'm going to wait for September 1st to read some special comments about Mrs. Morawski, who is an exceptional speech and language therapist. So I won't steal any of my thunder from September 1st, but we'll definitely pay homage to her then. Items number 2 through 6, as well as 31, which can be found on 16 and 17, as well as the addendum. Unfortunately, we do have several more resignations that we're asking you to accept. Number 11 through 33, we're asking you to approve the hire of 24 certified staff members for the 2015-16 school year. You can find that on pages 17 through 20, as well as on the addendum. Number 12, we're asking you to approve personnel related to athletic events. You can find that on page 20. 13, we're asking you to approve advisor assignments and salaries for the 2015-16 school year. 14 and 15, we're asking you to approve a consultant as well as some volunteers for the high school band. Number 16, we're asking you to approve the coaching assignments and salaries as indicated for the 2015-16 school year. And that's on pages 22 through 24. And if I may remind you, we've already approved the football assignments. Those were approved previously in May. Number 17, we're asking to approve some cafeteria work assignments, hourly rates, and that's for, of course, the 2015-16 school year. And that can be found on pages 24 through 26. Items number 18 through 34, we have several non-certified staff appointments. You can find that on page 26 as well as the addendum. We also have some transfers. They can be found on pages 26 through 27, and that is item 19. Number 21, we're asking you to approve the revisions to 2 job descriptions, our phone services technician, and essentially the change to that is who that person would report to. That person would now report to the Director of Special Projects / Technology, Mr. Glock-Malloy. And we're also asking you to approve the Power School Coordinator position, and that position went from 2 into 1. We combined it into just one job description for one person. And that can be found on page 27. Item number 22, we're asking you to approve stipends for the 2015-16 school year. Item number 23, we're asking you to approve a substitute teacher and nurse daily rates for the 2015-16 school year. That can be found on page 28. Similarly, we're asking you to approve non-certified substitute hourly rates for item 24 and on page 28. And of course, that's for the 2015-16 school year. Number 25, we're asking you to approve some professional days. Number 26, we're asking you to approve the superintendent merit bonus. And that is detailed with a resolution that runs from page 29 through 30. Number 27 through 28, we're asking you to approve revised salaries for summer IEP work and Camp Excel. And just so you know, we've had this motion on, and we've asked you to approve this because those salaries, those rates are fluid based upon the students and so forth. A note with regard to that, we had a very, very productive, fun, and most successful summer this year, which included Camp Excel, which included our summer enrichment program, which included all the work that our professionals did during summer IEP work, and of course, which included our credit completion summer school, which also was a great success. But again, we're asking you to approve some revised wages with regard to Camp Excel and summer IEP work. Number 29, we're asking you to approve 1 leave of absence. And number 32, we're asking you to approve the employment of personnel for our self-sustained Project Before, IPSB, and Little Stars preschool programs. That was formerly known as the adult school. And as many of you know, we went through great efforts to remodel our preschool programs that we offer parents for their children in Sayreville. In fact, we have 5 classrooms, 2 of which are full-day classrooms that are going to be at the Samsell Upper Elementary School. We have, I believe, anywhere from 14 to 16 general education preschoolers that will be attending a full-day integrated program. Along with that, we have 6 half-day programs at the Samsell Upper Elementary School in the integrated program, where we have anywhere between 8 to 5 general education children participating. And finally, at the Salover School, we have 2 programs, a 3-year-old program in the morning and a 4-year-old program in the morning, which right now are running at about 16 to 18 children. So that motion there is for the self-sustaining component of the program. This is the general education component where children pay tuition. So we're asking you to approve 2 part-time teachers from the self-sustaining program, as well as 5 teacher assistants. 3 of those teacher assistants, 7 teacher assistants, 1 of which is not on the agenda, but 3 of which are incumbents. They have been working with our program for many years. And that's it for Vision 2030 personnel.
Okay, any questions on the superintendent's report before I open up for the public?
I have a question.
Mrs. DePinto.
Didn't we have a girls bowling coach also?
Ms. Reese?
Yes, there is a girls bowling coach. That position hasn't been filled yet.
But we will have one.
We will have one.
So when is Okay, see no other questions? Oh, Mrs. Backer.
The strength and conditioning coaches, is there a summer one too?
Yes.
Okay, and is Christopher Began in the summer position?
Yes.
Oh, we approved that a while back.
We approved that
We approved this
back
hire.
in April, I think.
Yeah, we approved this hire. Yeah.
Okay. And on page 26, there were a lot of transfers. Is there a reason why we're making so many transfers? Are these people's requests, or is it changes we're making in the district?
Some of those transfers are related to more of an accounting rationale. For instance, you might see a teacher transferred from, I believe there's a teacher that was transferred from Resource Center to the Behavioral Disabilities Program within the same school, but it's a different account line that Mr. DeAndrea now has to pay for out of that. So we have to actually get you to approve that transfer, so our auditors will check that off for us. So anytime someone moves, even within a school, from one account line to the next, for instance, you saw a couple of agendas ago where we had the transfer of our teachers that are going to be looping from kindergarten to first grade. Well, that's a different account line. Mr. DeAndrea pays for their salaries at a different account line. So even though they're in the same school, we have to transfer them, and you have to approve that transfer so he can pay them out of a different account. So with regard to this agenda, there are several special education teachers that are moving from a resource center assignment within their school to a self-contained program that has a different account line. Outside of that, we do have some paraprofessionals. As you know, we did an intensive audit of our paraprofessional services, and we matched up our paraprofessionals with need. And I think you know that we ended the school year with about 18 paraprofessionals that were previously working in the 2014-15-16 school year. I'm sorry, the 2014-15 school year, who we weren't able to rehire. On this agenda, you'll see that we rehired 2 of those 18. But we also, because of the fact that we learned where our needs were, we had to transfer some of our paraprofessionals to other assignments because there was no need in their current school.
So we're still 16 down?
There are 16 paraprofessionals that worked in 2014-15 that we're unable to bring back at this moment because we don't have the need for it.
But we're going to keep them on the list, and as we...
Of course.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
For number 22, 23, 24, are there any changes in those dollar amounts, those rates?
Mr. DeAndrea or Ms. Reese?
No.
Those are the same, correct?
No, those are,
Dan?
They're all the same?
yes, they're the same.
Number 23, page 28, I'm going to abstain on.
Page 23.
Page 28, number 23. And on page number 23, It's item 16. I'm going to vote no on Michael Novak.
What was that one, Dan? I'm sorry. I just like
Michael Novak, page 23.
Head baseball coach.
Baseball.
Anybody else? Yes, Mrs. Vanko.
Page 23, I'm going to vote no on Michael Novak. Page 24, strength and conditioning coach, I'm going to vote no on Christopher Began.
I apologize,
And
I didn't hear which name.
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear which name you're voting no.
Began.
For both winter and spring?
Winter and spring?
And page 18, the top of the page, physical education, Matthew Bird.
And again, I apologize.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear what you're saying.
Bird, B-Y-R-D,
The physical
the
education.
first one.
You're voting,
The new appointments.
you're voting no on that?
I'm voting no.
Is that because of the money, or?
Yes,
Oh, backwards.
the step. Because of the step.
Anybody else?
I number Bellamy then.
No, next page.
Oh, Bird, I apologize.
Anybody else? Seeing none, at this time, I'd like to open up for the public for any questions or comments about agenda items. I will open up again for the public for any business that may come before this board. Mr. Bovary.
John Bovary, 1210 Harbor Club Drive. Just a last thought that I just saw all the votings or roll call, whatever that just was, right? I had another note down there earlier that as a member of the public, along the way in your process, I think the public would appreciate being involved more along the way. And the item I wanted to highlight related to that was the rubric developed to evaluate Dr. Labby or any other superintendent in their job, okay? You guys seem to just do it, throw it out to us, and we get one little shot to react to this. And I think this comes under your bailiwick, Kevin. I think you worked in the contract to develop this rubric. I'll get to that more in a second. But the public never got a chance to tell you how we think he should be evaluated. I don't know. If I was you, Nine, I'd ask the public for some input along the way more than you do. And it goes to what I just saw, some no's, a couple here, a couple there. No discussion on the topic. No idea why one person says no and one person says yes. No debate, no nothing, just a no. Man, I think we're in the dark out here as to what's going on. Okay? Did someone throw pizza at you in the back and you vote no against them for no reason? Well, why do you not want to give somebody $5,000 for a stipend? Okay? You know, more transparency, maybe that's the word. Okay? Back to the agenda. Hopefully that was the agenda. I think it kind of was. Right? Nick Pazzulli, interim athletic director. Could we touch on briefly, and I'll preface this by saying that back 2 months ago I made the recommendation to keep Nick on for a while afterwards, okay? So that's my position on this, but I think we need to hear a little bit more. What's the reason why we think Lynn Taylor needs some help?
I think that based upon the circumstances that we're confronted with at this moment, with the attention that our football program is getting and the attention that our athletic department is getting, I think that that merits some assistance from someone that she can consult with, she can rely on, someone that is a proven effective athletic director who she can safely go to get feedback, to get guidance, and to get recommendations as to how to proceed with some of the day-to-day things that might occur in that department, particularly in light of the fact that everything that we do during the fall when it pertains to athletics is going to fall under a great deal of scrutiny.
No doubt. I guess it was going to possibly start tonight, but it didn't. Good answer. That's what I would have said as well. Right? The 50 hours max, because that's 5,000, 50 hours max. How are we doing that? He hanging out for a couple hours a day for like 3 months?
No, it's going to be on an as-needed basis, but anytime we go ahead and approve anybody for a contract, there's a do-not-exceed amount. So basically, that's a do not exceed, unless we feel that he's approaching that amount and we feel that, okay, she needs a little bit more assistance, then we'll go to the board and we'll ask the board if we can approve him for additional hours. So anytime we approve anyone for a purchase professional agreement, we always include a do not exceed amount.
So it could be revisited, but right now you foresee that to
Right.
potentially be enough.
Yep.
Right? Gotcha. Last question on that topic. He was working for $500 a day back in the spring, which I roughly will use a 7-hour workday around here. I don't know exactly what it is to the minute. But that's about $72 an hour. What's he going to do more this time for $100 an hour than he was doing full-time for $72?
That's the contractual rate that he provided with us. It's actually a very consistent contractual rate for most consultants.
So it's a rate he gave you for his services.
Yeah, every time whenever we contract with anyone for purchase professional service, they provide us with a contractual rate, and we go from there. So that's a rate that he provided us. We did some research. It's a very consistent rate with what many consultants are asking for.
But it's not consistent, the rate he worked for in the spring. So did we say to him, you worked for $72 an hour for 4 months? Why 100? Did we ask him that?
That was the rate that he was.
I didn't
He gave
stop.
us.
You're not putting on the spot. It's simply yes or no. Did we ask him, can you work for 72?
The rate that he gave us was that, and I found that rate to be consistent with what other consultants.
So no yes or no, just as lame as the prosecutor. Comment. Pervasive? You didn't answer that question back in October either. Listen, I like you, okay? The fact that you can't say yes or no that you asked him to work for 72 is, use a big vocabulary word, a disgrace, okay? Your contract is the next topic. Oh, my God, I didn't realize it was going to go down this way, okay? Kevin, I guess most of this is directed at you. Am I incorrect to think that I've been told that you spearheaded the new contract to Dr. Labby and these new this is new for everybody. First time anybody's seen these things in black and white for merit performance bonuses for superintendent, at least to my knowledge, right? It's the first go-around of the new Christie rules, I guess, or
Correct.
whoever made the rules, right? And I'm all about measuring people, okay? You know, more than anybody you know, probably. I don't follow what's going on here, okay? Need help. We'll take it apart one by one. On the bottom of page 29, Dr. Labby is going to be compensated in some way, shape, or form, but for some reason you've chosen not to tell this dollar amount. I'm in section 2, item B. On bottom of page 29, under quantitative criteria, 2-B, there's no dollar amount there to tell us what he's going to get paid when he does these things. Yet on the back page, on items that he has achieved, okay, you tell us that number. Any reason you don't want to tell us the number he's going to be paid when he achieves those?
Yeah, you want to, I'm
What?
looking for the contract to show you the,
Yeah, just first of all, to clarify the process, I worked with Dr. Labby to negotiate the initial contract, which basically, from what I recall, just included a provision that the board would meet to discuss merit goals and subsequently approve merit goals, which the board did. So the goals themselves, as well as the contract, belong to the board. The only discussions that Dr. Labby and I had were with regard to the contract itself. These goals were not in it.
Gotcha.
With regard to the 2 goals you cited, because there's no data to substantiate whether or not those goals were achieved, Dr. Labby isn't receiving any compensation this year for those goals. The board will meet again coming up to establish new goals for the following school year and associate specific dollar amounts for those goals if they are achieved.
But if that goal is achieved, because the results aren't out yet, that's the only reason you can't do it. We don't know the school results for the SAT from the end of the school year.
right.
The College Board just doesn't have ready. So you set this goal back when you signed the contract with them in the beginning, but you couldn't measure it during that given year. You're going to measure it down the road. What were the measurement for improving, as it says, increase the total average student SAT score for language arts and math? What were the goals?
I don't have that information with me. Do you have the original?
No, that's what I was looking for. I don't have the, this was all contractual, the merit bonus. These are things that we wanted Dr. Labby to work on.
Yeah, I got it. They're just listed here. I was
Yeah.
just
Right.
hoping somebody could tell me what the goals were.
Yeah, if I knew you were going to ask that question, I would have it for you, because it's certainly public knowledge.
Okay, so I'll email you before
Yeah,
in the
that's fine.
future.
That's no problem. No dollar amount.
I didn't know I was going to ask until I read the agenda at 7 o'clock.
No, okay. It's a public document, it's not a problem.
Okay, so I can have a copy of Dr. Labby's contract agreement and all his merit measurements.
Counselor, how's that work?
If I can, Mr. Bovary, and I know you're, you're an information seeker, and I certainly appreciate that you and I.
I mean, Dr. Labby ain't happy with me right now. I can
No.
see this.
Well,
That's cool.
let's.
It's been a few months.
Well, hold on. So let me just be very clear here. I don't really see what you're describing is missing here. I mean, obviously, a superintendent's contract is a public record in every
Okay.
single school. Well, just one second. In every single school district. So, what is it that your concern is lacking? Because I got to be honest with you, this is one of the most transparent and full of information agenda items I've seen throughout the state on a superintendent's merit bonus to date. So I'm not sure what it is that you're looking in addition to
To date,
this
isn't
criteria.
this the first month you could have seen it?
No. This has been going on since 2010.
Since it changed.
Since 2010,
In this
and so
town,
the
we've had merit? We've had
no,
merit?
no,
Not in
no, no,
Sayreville.
no.
Not in Sayreville.
Oh, okay.
No,
I
no.
thought you were talking about Sayreville.
So you had obviously you had Dr. Alfano prior. His contract just expired. So this is the first time you're dealing with it since it's Dr. Labby's first year. But in other districts, they've been doing this since 2010 or
Okay,
2011.
so we just chose not to monitor the merit
No,
of
the
Dr.
the contract from the last superintendent, John, expired, and he decided not to renew it, he retired.
So
Yeah,
I'm
so
just,
we didn't have merits in Alfano's contract, but
No.
we could have.
No,
Well, no.
because his contract
Was
was
written before
approved.
2010.
Yes.
Correct.
Gotcha.
correct. So you're right that it's, like you said earlier, that's Governor Christie's
Right.
initiative.
Yeah, gotcha.
This board was required, if it was going to even consider the possibility of paying Dr. Labby more than it has, it would only be through bonus, and this is the requirement. So,
So you asked me what was missing, I'm prepared to.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
On that section, one more time, I think they got it. You know, I know lawyers are slower, right?
Apparently. Go ahead.
You're going to you decided to measure them. You say to increase the total average SAT score, but you can't know the results yet because it's not quite ready. It should be ready in October, okay? If he reached those measurements that are in some document I'm going to get, yes, I'm going to get it.
There'll be some document, presumably, that's a public document. I don't know exactly
And
what
it's going to
document.
have the measurement of how much of an increase he's going to generate.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Mr. Bovary,
Yep.
I am not going to get compensated for those goals, period.
That's what I was looking for clarity.
There's a $0
I
amount.
just said that in public. So whether the results come back where there's a percentage increase
Great.
based upon the previous scores, okay, the board and I agreed that I will not be compensated. I, in a sense, surrendered those goals.
I don't know why it took us 10 minutes to hear that. They're over here trying to find numbers. That's that page, back page.
I thought, but I'm like, gee.
On the qualitative criteria. 1-C,
Nobody said it.
development of a math program designed to increase the number of students successfully completing Algebra 1 prior to the 9th grade by the end of 2 school years from now. What is the current number of students? We're looking for an increase, so where are we at now?
Well, you know, offhand, do you have that?
No
data?
problem, we'll get that some other time, too.
Well, and John, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to just say something to you. The other component of this, I think that you're missing is, in some ways, the board has given you way more, like I said, way more information than a board typically would, and now you're looking for very specific information into this, and some of it, and I'm not speaking specifically to any one component here, is personnel information. The board has a requirement to certify to the county superintendent whether or not Dr. Labby has met these standards. It's doing so. Some of the information you're looking for may be obtainable through a public records request, but other information may not be.
Just don't stick it in my face.
Well, it's required.
How's that sound?
Well, it sounds horrible because it's not required. They're not required to do anything other than
Okay,
that
then
what they're
don't
doing.
do what you're not prepared to back up.
John, it's.
Don't half do it.
It's transparency. We put all this information there. We didn't have to put anything in there.
Hey,
You're
it
searching.
took 10 minutes to find out that he's not going to take money that you were willing to give him. Great, I can applaud him for that.
Well, tell you the question. To tell you the truth, I didn't understand your initial question on those two things. You said when he's compensated, it says zero amount, so it's a non-player. It's off the table.
And I asked Kevin what would be the amount when he reaches those goals and he went Fred Flintstone on me, blah, 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 blah.
Well, the way the contract language is written, it would be not to exceed 2.5% of his salary.
Because, John, what I
So
thought
we
you were...
got percentages involved in everything here, and
What I-
none of that's represented here.
What I thought you were looking for was the amount that he would have received had he achieved those goals. That information I didn't have with me.
But he's saying it's zero.
Yeah, for those two, yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
We'll
he
be on
thought
that.
you were asking what he would have received.
Yes.
If we had the data.
If we approved the goal that he achieved.
And there
it.
was money allocated that you wanted to give him if he reached the goals, but he's declining it.
Yes.
So there is a number out there, isn't there?
Well, we never computed it because it was never met. It would be a simple not to exceed 2.5%.
The way you wrote it, it couldn't be met because the data would never be out in time.
Well,
Okay? Right?
No, that's
Qualitative criteria, we went down this road 3 months ago, too. Algebra 1, ninth grade. We're going to be the first town in this state to put 100% of our ninth graders, eighth graders through that. I understand that. Woodbridge tried it last year, was an abortion, and down to 30% this year. Pretty much same district factor group, okay? You don't know the number of kids currently in it, so you don't tell me how it's going to increase, right? What if it fails? Do we just pay to develop a plan, or do we pay if the plan works? So if he increases the number of kids, and I hate calling him he, it's Dr. Labby, okay, right? If the number of kids increase that pass Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but doesn't reach whatever level the goal was, and the program falls apart the next year, we're going back for the $4.5 grand?
No, the board will reassess it at that time.
So we are paying him just to develop the concept, even if it fails.
No, there's more than one criteria there, John. There's several of them. The inclusion, the RTI
Gotcha. So that's,
methodology,
that's a
all
part
those
of it.
things.
It's only a part of it. I get it. Okay? You know, how do we measure the increase is what I'm looking for. Okay?
That's fine, John. You can actually, John, you know that if you request information, and, you know, if we know
I did
you're
not
gonna-
know until it was said that I could have his contract.
Well, I know, but yeah, it's a public document. John, we've never held anything back
I'm
from
just
you.
saying I
before
didn't know it.
Okay, well,
Okay.
now you know, and you can get.
Oh,
any kind
now
of-
I know it, I'll get them all.
Yeah, right. You have every right.
Now I know it,
Right.
okay? I'll read them all, read all the merits, and I won't have dumb questions up here that you can't answer. Okay? But there's two measurements I'm looking for. How are we measuring the increase in the SAT scores? And how we're measuring the increase in Algebra 1 kids?
We can provide it.
Somewhere down the road.
We can provide it for you.
Right, thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? Tough act to follow, Ms. Cummings.
Barbara Kilcummins, 22 Schmidt Street. Number 23,
On what page, Barbara?
for a substitute type pay.
What page?
What page is that, Barbara?
Page 28.
Okay.
It's teacher/nurse daily rate. I recall, I think at one time we had to pay nurses more, or we were paying more for nurses for substitutes because they were hard to achieve. Is this true, or hard to acquire?
Yeah.
Substitute nurses? Absolutely.
So, but that's not listed here. They're lumped in with the teachers?
Substitute nurses.
If you're substitute nurses, they're paid
more.
somewhat. You know.
It's this rate. Yeah, it's a classical class of nurses.
Okay.
So what?
The nurses, they are, but there's,
Microphone.
oh, I'm sorry. They're under the 200, the class 4 subs.
Okay. So that's their salary. And something that's near and dear to me that I caused, I guess, a little ruffles was the principal's substitute pay. And you have short-term. And what would be the long-term substitute pay for a principal?
Where is that?
Short-term meaning on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's what it says here.
Right.
Short-term for administration, NJ principal or supervisor certification. A few years back, when Mr. Brown was out ill, we paid a substitute, which was a retired assistant superintendent, $500 a day, which I found extremely exorbitant and out of line. So now you have $240. So is that?
That's that per diem, like if a principal's going to be out 1 day or 2 days, but if we have a principal that's going to take a leave where they're out for 3 to 4 months or longer, then we'll develop a contract with that principal, similar to how we approach the situation with the athletic director.
Okay. Well, I was just happy to see this 240, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anybody else? Okay, yes. Well, let me close the public first. Let me close the public. What?
Can I ask a question before we vote?
Yeah. Okay, at this time, I'll close the public. Any questions again before we, Ms. Backo, do you want to say something before we?
Yeah, because now I guess I'm confused. Back to these merit goals. I thought I understood the question, and now I'm not so sure. I had thought the question was that what would the future dollar amount be if you achieved that goal when we find out the data? My impression was it would still be zero.
Correct.
But now I don't know, is that correct? Is it only correct because you are voluntarily forfeiting it? If you chose not to, would we be paying you later for this? I'm confused.
Basically, I guess in a sense you could look at it as if we didn't agree that I was going to surrender those goals, someone could make that argument. But I've stated it now to you as well as in public,
Right.
that I do not want to be compensated for those goals for the reasons explained, that that data is not going to be available for quite some time. In fact, we're probably not going to get the park data until January. So in essence, when that goal was developed, and if you remember, that goal was developed and approved by you the previous September. And by the way, that's when I'm going to ask you to approve my goals for this upcoming year. It was ill-conceived of me to ask you to, approve those goals, but I didn't realize the fact that we weren't going to get park data until that late. So, no, I will not be seeking compensation for either one of those goals, and that's what I've said from the very beginning, and I'll say that again as many times as I need to.
Okay, but now if we were to talk about the SAT scores, is that data here?
That's not here yet, but to me it's a moot point because, again, I'm not seeking that. Now, I do want that data because I want to see how we progressed. That's important for us as a school district. It's not important for me in terms of my merit bonus.
Right, but I guess I'm asking this for future reference. If we were to have such a goal like this for the next go-around, come next August, we still would not have that data. So how could we ever measure this type of goal in this time frame? We
Right.
pay you later?
Again, that was an ill-conceived and poorly developed goal by myself in terms of that data. Maybe because of the fact that I was superintendent previously in a K through 8 district, I didn't realize how long it would take for us to get that data, and that's why I included it. Now that I know that that data is not available at this time, that will not be included in my goals for the next cycle.
Okay, so I guess my question is from a timing perspective. I mean, I don't think that's a bad goal to ask you to increase SAT scores. And if I remember, we discussed that. So how could we ever put such a goal in if the data doesn't coincide with
Right,
this
I mean,
timing?
Timing's not going to.
That's the difficult thing. I mean, most of this is driven by the Department of Ed. Just so you know, too, we're required to get Department of Education approval after your approval for these bonuses prior to September 1st. So I need to get your approval and then Department of Ed approval prior to September 1st. My merit bonus goals for 2015-16 have to be approved by you and them, but it's reverse. It goes first them, then you, by the end of September. So the system is, in a sense, flawed in that regard. Those were quite challenging goals. Many of my colleagues did not have goals utilizing essential data like park data or SAT data. But my thinking behind developing those goals were that's crucial data for us that measures student progress. It's not nonsense data. It doesn't get any stronger than those two forms of data. But because of the system developed, I can't possibly use those, as you can see, for goals going forward, although they would be the best forms of data. because of the deadlines that I have from the Department of Ed to have them approved by you and then by them.
Okay, so now for the future, if you're sending your goals to the Department of Ed, and then say they approve it, then it comes to us.
Then it comes to you.
And suppose if there's something we don't like, do we change it and then it
Yep,
goes
and then I
back
have
to
to
the
go back
Department
to
of-
them and make sure it's okay with them.
But we're going to work with you on the goals before you
Correct.
send them to the Department.
Correct.
Oh, so we will see
Yeah.
them before
We'll-
you send them?
We'll work, but I can't ask you to approve them until they've given me approval.
Okay, so we don't get to see them till after they see.
No,
the
we'll
Department
work
of
with
Ed
them
sees
together.
Craft them with them.
We'll work with
We
them
will.
together.
We craft them with them, and when we agree that that's okay.
Okay, but you said September, I mean, that's only,
By the end of September for my new
okay,
goals.
so it's only, it's not that far away,
No, the September 1st is for the merit bonus.
right?
The new goals, I have to have them approved by you guys by the end of September.
Okay, so it will be at like a regular board
Yeah.
meeting we do this?
Yeah, we did it last year during that September 1st meeting.
During the September 1st meeting?
Although it sounds to me like this board wants to do that, but there are many districts, for example, where the board itself does not, the only statutorily required act by the board with respect to goals is the one that you're taking tonight with respect to the certification to the county as to whether or not he's met the goals. The provision of the goals themselves can be provided by agreement of a committee with the superintendent and presented to the county superintendent for approval, but very few boards, frankly, adopt them in the first place and then adopt them in the end. The only required act is the one you're actually taking
Is what
tonight.
we're doing tonight.
Yes.
So then, can I ask you another question? These goals are all together. It was one package deal, and there was a certain price put on it. And then the board went through a process of, I guess, voting on it, whatever. I know you don't like that word, but, and then there was
Wait,
like.
who said I don't like that
No,
word?
Jonathan doesn't
Oh.
like that word. It's a Webster problem. So if there was one here that I was in the minority in and didn't support, but yet as a whole, the board majority supported this, and so does that mean that we're voting yes on this because the board majority did it as a total, even if there's a proponent of this that I didn't agree upon? Do I pull that out? I mean, we've
No,
never
it's the
done this
majority-
before.
It's the majority of the board's vote, just like on the evaluation.
I think
Right, but we've never done that we don't do that publicly.
No.
But
Ms.
this
Ms.
was
required
Bacco, just like any other agenda item, the way that this board has operated before, unless I'm mistaken, and the board secretary could correct me if I'm wrong here, but for example, you may say, number 13, I vote yes with the exception of the name, Phyllis Batko, for example. You would say, I vote yes with the exception of goal number, 1C. In that case, I vote no, I vote yes on all others. Theoretically, assuming that there wasn't any clear objection by board with respect to procedure, I would have no problem with you doing that.
Okay. But is that the way since it's our first time, is that how it's normally done, or?
As I told Mr. Bovary, this is the most flushed out agenda item I've seen, and I've seen many of them. I've gone through this probably collectively about 8 or 9 cycles already with various boards, and this is the most flushed out agenda item I've seen so far on a superintendent goal. So I don't know. I've never seen it done before, except for here.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Sack.
And with that, I've never met a dead horse I didn't want to kick yet again, so I'm going to ask a follow-up question in terms of process. Is the September 1 deadline regulatory or statutory? I.e., is it a Department of Ed regulation, or is it stated in statute, or we're not sure?
Can't be statute.
I believe it's a regulation.
I think it's a regulation in 6823A, but I'd have to look.
Okay, because I'm just thinking that may be something that we want to have New Jersey school boards look at, possibly extending or pushing out to give us an opportunity to get data to have a meaningful discussion.
What they don't want is for boards, not this board, is very obviously on top of things board, but there are some boards who might push it out so far that it may even be able to be seen what the goals will be before they're either fulfilled or not fulfilled, and then obviously the whole idea of goals is thrown out the window, right? If you know that your superintendent's going to make a goal, why would you approve them in March when the information will be available maybe in May and you'll already have
No,
an idea as to
I'm
where
not
they're
suggesting we push out the goal development. I'm asking that we push out the goal assessment until such time as we have the data. So if we push that to December.
But I also think that there's an accounting and an auditing requirement. I mean, these were funds that you budgeted for in the 2014-15 budget. And this is not part of the 15-16 budget. This was part of the 2014-15 budget. So to push payment to me out to January of 2016 from something that was budgeted in the 2014-15 budget,
it's budgeted in your 15-16.
My current payment was from the 2014-15.
Right, but it's in this year's budget.
For next year's goals, for 15-16 goals. That's the way you did, yes.
Okay.
No, because the only reason is there's no money in the 14-15 because we're closed out.
But that's
Yeah,
part of the
we
reason why it
understand.
has to be approved.
That's right. All right, so good
So in
discussion.
essence, could we put in an SAT goal and just not, and pay in the future?
I can
you
find
do
out.
that?
I can.
County
That's
superintendent.
a discussion I can have with the executive county superintendent when I develop my new goals to see if I could potentially have a goal that included the SATs, and then have the board approve that goal later in the the following school year. And that in this particular case, hypothetically, it would be the 16-17 school year. Would it be plausible for you to be able to compensate me in December 2016-17 for a goal from the 2015-16 school year? I can ask that question.
Okay. Since we had this discussion again after I close public, I'll open up the public again. Any agenda items? Seeing none, okay, I'll close it. I'll open it up again. I'll close it, entertain a vote to accept and file the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Need a roll call?
Mr. Bowser?
Yes.
Mrs. Backer?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Sire?
Yes, with the abstention noted on the bills list.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mrs. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McNamara?
Yep. Okay, any committees meet since last board meeting? Personnel, John?
Yeah, personnel met briefly today. We talked about some of the outstanding candidates we had for the physical education position and the interview process they went through. And we also talked about the merging of the Power School coordinator job.
Very good. Finance infrastructure? Dan?
Yeah, last Tuesday we met, yep.
Okay.
Okay, on the building cleanliness side, Mrs. Komprowski reported that the summer's cleaning is moving right along and they were about 90% complete. The SUAS and the high school might be a little behind because of all the summer usage at those buildings. On capital projects, Mr. Pantiano gave us updates on the following projects. He said the RF heating control project is moving right along. Truman School door has been ordered, but might not be installed prior to the SCAR school. In that case, it will be done after school hours. High school roof, A-wing, and main gym are complete. A-wing is almost done. L-wing is next, followed by administrative offices. They're planning on tripling the manpower to get the project done quickly. High school parking lot has been restriped, and the SUAS is next. High school athletic field drainage repairs on the home side bleachers are 2/3 complete. Middle school wireless clocks are installed. Middle school gym heat issues have been corrected, and the middle school classroom B18 renovations have been complete. On the finance side, we spoke about the consultant for AD as well as the consultant for central registration. We also discussed bringing back home instruction in-house, and we agreed that we're going to move forward to it as soon as we get all the rates approved and people to volunteer to do that. We also discussed the steps of which some of the new employees are being brought in at, and as well as what is happening at the middle school side. That's all.
Okay. Student achievement, we have not met since last meeting. Policy?
Policy is scheduled to meet August 26th, finally, at 4 p.m. after much negotiations for a date.
You got anything from the Jersey School Board Association?
Nothing to report.
Okay. On discussion, Dr. Labby, since this was the first year of your Camp Excel, how did we wind up? What was the final enrollment in?
We had about 220 students. At some points, we ranged because attendance sometimes fluctuated somewhere around 220, 230. But very, very productive.
Any feedback?
First year. Nothing but very positive feedback from our parents. We're hoping we had about 40 kids that attended on a tuition basis based upon the feedback that I received, as well as the number of people. We turned down about 25 people as the program started. So based upon that, we're expecting a grand turnout next year in terms of the number of students that will participate. And it's our goal to try to get 400 to 500 kids in that program. The more kids we can engage in fun learning during the summer so that they stay cognitively active, particularly with regard to mathematics and English language arts and social skills, I think that's crucial for our overall student achievement when the kids return in September.
And how did that blend with summer enrichment?
That blended well. I do know that there was some hiccups. I know that one of the things that we need to iron out with that is that I think some of our parents may not have been aware or prepared for some of our children with disabilities participating after Camp Excel in summer enrichment, and I've had some discussions with some parents. As you know, according to the law, if we provide a program that we're going to open for some of our kids, we have to open it to all of our kids, including our children with disabilities. And I noted before on the Camp Excel attachment A why our salaries went up. Well, it's incumbent upon the school district, if you have a child with a disability and they have a particular supplementing service like a paraprofessional, if they're participating in a program that's sponsored by the district, you have to provide the program with those supplementary supports that are equivalent to the IEP. So the reason why we had to continue to ask you to approve a difference in wages for Camp Excel is because we had to ask paraprofessionals to work extended from the Camp Excel day into the summer enrichment day to support our children with disabilities that were in that program.
Well, Camp Excel was your vision. You sold it to us. It was a great success. And I heard a lot of good things, too. And hopefully next year the enrollment is enlarged, and I think it benefits everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion items. I want to talk about I know there's been a lot of talk about the SRO in the middle school and what our plan is for that and how that's all going to work out. Could you just give us a little brief on that?
Yeah, when we sat down as a finance committee, we developed the budget. We discussed the advantages and disadvantages of having a security guard rather than an SRO, and we ultimately decided that we were going to go with a security guard and maybe try to split the time between the SRO at the high school with the middle school. After that point, we were contacted by the police department, and I engaged in discussions with the chief of police about that. And the chief of police really felt strongly about making sure that there was a separate SRO officer in each school, to the point where he actually offered to engage the borough in dialogue with the school district about possible deferment or even forgiveness of this year's SRO costs for the middle school due to the fact that we were in such a budget crisis.
Okay. What is the status of that? What was the...
We engaged in those discussions, and I feel that if the township is willing to go ahead and defer or forgive us for the cost this year, and we can provide the level of security to the middle school students as well as the high school students that we've been providing in the past, especially in light of the fact that we're still a culture and a society in which on the news it seems like every week we hear about something that occurs someplace. Having the security of a patrolman in our schools who can respond swiftly to any type of incident that might put our children in peril, I think is advantageous to us, and I think it's something that we need to consider. I know that we've discussed this previously, but I think that the more I listen, the more I read, the more I tune into what's going on across the nation, I think that it's something that we really need to discuss as a board.
So when the doors open up in September, just to make sure everybody understands, we will have an SRO and 2 campus security people here in the high school. Correct? We have 2 or 3?
3.
3 security plus a police officer.
An SRO, yes.
Right. And the middle school will have an SRO and 1 security.
Currently, right now, according to the budget, we'll just have a security guard. It is something that I would like to discuss this evening in terms of taking the borough up on the
So let me just
olive branch that they
Right.
offered us.
So you're requesting to the board that we approve an SRO in the middle school, based on the conversation you had with the chief of police?
I'm asking the board to discuss and consider the possibility of taking advantage of what the police department and the borough is offering us, which again is they would have to approve it, but possible deferment and maybe even forgiveness of the cost for the middle school SRO officer for this school year.
Discussion? Mr. Sayer.
First of all, I think it's a good idea, and not only for I think the obvious reasons that you stated about the stuff that's on the news, but I think what makes that position work at the middle school is that officer hears stuff in the community and then can act on it in the school before it becomes an issue. Likewise, can hear stuff in the school from the kids and act on it in the community before it becomes an issue. So I think that communication role there is very important. In terms of the deferment or the forgiveness, I would also say if we could talk to the borough, maybe there's some type of percentage allocation where on an ongoing basis, even if they don't pick up the middle school SRO fully or even 50%, maybe they'll commit to a 25% funding or a 20% funding, some type of ongoing funding commitment for that individual.
We'll shoot for 100%.
Oh, yeah, you start out with 100%, but whatever we can get.
Any other discussion?
But I'm just saying on an ongoing basis, so we're not sitting here next year having to figure out how do we pay for 2 years' worth or having this discussion again for what I see as an ongoing need.
Anybody else?
What exactly does an SRO do? That's because I thought there was some fights in the cafeteria last year that I asked about, and I asked when the SRO got here, and they said it's not his job to come in and stop fights. So I'm kind of confused here.
Well, they're police officers, and I assume that they would do things that are commensurate with being a police officer. I mean, a fight between two 12-year-olds, I mean, we have staff, we have security people in the building to do that. My feeling is, look, I've been an advocate of SROs. I'm talking, armed, trained, uniformed police officers, and I prefer that they park their marked vehicle in front of the school. I've always been an advocate of that, and that can never be a bad thing. I'm a total advocate of that. And you recall, after that incident happened in Connecticut, the board meeting, that there was at least 130 people here concerned about this issue. The chief of police was here, Barry Eck was here to explain it. There's a lot of good things about Sayreville. We're fortunate where our schools are located in relationship to the police department, response times, all those kinds of things. But having a police officer in the school is something that, especially if we don't have to pay for it, I mean, that's even a better thing. I'm an advocate if you have to pay for it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I've always been that way. But a police officer, I don't expect him to break up two 12-year-olds.
It was in a high school, so I was assuming they were older than 12. I mean,
my anticipation is they're there as a deterrent. They're there to anything that's serious that the staff can't handle that requires a police officer who also has instant contact with the road guys. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there are some limitations to what a police officer can do, and that's why when we had our initial budget discussions, we felt that a security guard, particularly in our middle school program, where we're developing a new behavioral disabilities program, where that person could do some of the things that an SRO officer couldn't do, such as break up fights and help maintain discipline and order within the school. However, what the security guard does not provide us is with that actual police presence. Just the squad car outside the school is a deterrent to a potential school intruder. To the point where one of the suggestions that we made to the chief, and the chief was very receptive of it, we've asked the chief that for our elementary schools, that when his guys are finished a shift or beginning a shift and they need to do their paperwork, we'll give them a place within our elementary schools so that they can park their car, go into the elementary school, and do your paperwork in there. Again, the presence of that police officer, I think, is really important in terms of being a deterrent. The other thing that they do, and what's real important, is that they develop a relationship with the students. And I think that's really important, particularly at an age where we read about and we hear on the news about this adversarial relationship between our young people, particularly our young minority children, and law enforcement. We've all heard the cases, we've all seen the stories, and I think that having an SRO officer greatly enhances the ability to develop positive relationships between our students and law enforcement.
Right. I agree. It's called a school resource officer, and it's particular courses for that, because there are resources, especially at the high school. They can talk to the kids about safe driving. They can talk to the kids about drugs. They can monitor and see what's going on, colors, tattoos, all those types of things. It's intelligence gathering, because those are the kids that are in our community. So that's why they call it a resource officer.
That's right. It should be more of a police funding issue than us funding them.
Well, no argument for me.
That's my.
No argument for me.
And I do know that the borough does budget for them.
Right.
And that's where the whole idea about deferment or forgiveness came about.
Sure.
I'm against the deferment because we already have 3 special ed teachers that aren't budgeted for that we hired already. That we could create a whole next year's budget because we have 3 teachers that we never budgeted for in this year's budget, and then we're going to defer a payment for this year into next year's budget as well. We're going to be you're talking $300,000 in the hole already for next year just with new positions that we didn't budget for this year.
Well, to me, when we deal with SRO presence or police presence, once you have that, and then you take it away, you always have that concern, what if? Now, to me, it's like, you play the lottery, and then one time you don't play the lottery, you're so concerned that your number's going to come out. And I hate to make that comparison, but that's the reality of it. And I don't think you ever get any balking from the community having a police officer visible in the school. I know we have to look at the financial picture. I understand that's the reality that we live in, but to me, if we have to find $50,000 or $100,000 in the budget, I could find it. It's a trade-off.
So you're going to join us next year for
It's a
Finance
trade-off.
Committee then, Mike?
I know I'm committed myself to just doing that.
You just committed yourself. Yeah.
But to me, it's money. To me, it's money well spent. And as a peace of mind.
Yeah, the thing is, that police officers only work 4 on, 4 off, so there's never here a full week either.
Well, I think that conversation come up with the chief.
And that is a conversation that I had with the chief. While the chief feels that having an SRO officer be shared between both schools on a daily basis is not going to be effective. Case in point, if an SRO officer is engaged in some form of investigation, pulling away from that investigation when they're learning valuable information is going to be quite difficult. But he did say that the days in which one SRO officer would be off, and there is 1 day a week that SRO officer would be off, the other SRO officer would have to take care of both schools.
And their close proximity makes that.
He also assured me that that they would not be pulled for incidents that might occur. I mean, I guess if there was a major catastrophe or a huge emergency within the borough, he probably can't make that promise. But he did assure me that the SRO officers would not be pulled. He did tell me, though, that they have certain standards. I think they have to have a certain amount of range time. That sometimes does conflict with the schedule. But again, each SRO officer would cover for the other when that would occur.
Okay. So, any other conversation? Are you looking for direction? I mean, you want us to give you an answer on this? Mrs. Backo.
If I remember back when the Finance Committee had this conversation, it was your recommendation that we switch from an SRO to a security guard because of, like you said, with the behavioral classes and
Yes.
what a security guard could do that a police officer couldn't. So the Finance Committee, I believe we made the decision based on your recommendation.
Yes.
If you feel that maybe that was not the right thing to do, why did we hire the security guard tonight?
Because I feel that we need that security guard for the things that the SRO officer cannot do.
So you're looking to fund an SRO and a security guard at the middle school?
Again, if we weren't, if the olive branch was not extended, then we would go the course that we're going. But because of the fact that the chief of police felt strongly about the need for an SRO officer, I not being a law enforcement agent, I can't have his perspective, so I have to entrust in the fact that this is someone, that this is their career, they're an expert, in this industry. So having him tell me how important he felt it was for the community, for the school, and then being open to engaging the district into dialogue with the borough about deferment and the possibility of forgiveness of that during this budget crisis, that's what brought us to this point. If there wasn't that offering, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. But because of the fact that they've already budgeted for those officers and they're willing to either defer or possibly forgive us for the use of that officer for this year, I think it's something that we should consider.
So let me recommend to the board then that we go to an SRO officer on a deferment basis, and when he gives us the bill, we ask for forgiveness.
So that'll be That'll be something that we vote on during September 1st, but I wanted to engage you in this discussion now. If in fact we move forward and put this on the agenda, we would at least have the opportunity to discuss the matter.
Anybody opposed to?
No, but I think we should have had this conversation before we hired the security guard tonight. I think that would have been a more appropriate way to do this.
But we need them both, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, but today we needed them both. During all the budget hearings, we never brought it up. So I just think having two, now we're adding two positions instead of one.
I understand what, the tough times we're in economically, but as a parent of students in the district, if I take my board hat off for a minute, I just think this is somewhere where we can't skimp. We got to make sure it works, make sure it's as safe as possible. And I'm sure the parents in the town agree with me. Again, we have an expert in law enforcement telling us what would make our school safest. I think if we can swing both, it's somewhere where we can't skip.
Is anybody opposed to it?
Well, I like the idea, but I don't necessarily like the idea of saying that, okay, let's pay for it, or let's put it in, let's pay, and then, or defer it, I guess I should say.
Well, I think next year's budget, you got to build it in, but for this year, if we're interested in a deferment and possible forgiveness, I would.
Well, let's just ask for forgiveness, and then negotiate deferment, maybe.
Well, that's.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. I would say let's try to avoid the deferment concept, because all we're doing is pushing the pain down one more year so that it's going to hurt twice as much next year. Because if we're having this conversation now, we're not going to cut it next year.
Right.
So we know we're going to have an SRO next year as well. So I would say let's try to avoid the deferment, and let's push either for the forgiveness piece or a payment plan or something, rather than taking a double whammy.
Okay.
The additional revenue we raise will compensate. Okay.
That'll work.
That was a good discussion. Last item I have is based on policy and the board president authority to put a committee together. I'm establishing a committee tonight called the Pilot Committee, the payment in lieu of taxes. We all know what's going on in town with the developments and the preference to have these developments established as the pilot program, which is not beneficial to the tax base for the school district. So I'm appointing Mrs. Batko to chair that committee. On it, there's going to be Ms. Bloom and some conversations we have with the council. There's also, we have the leeway to appoint a member of the public on there, and so I'm also appointing Mr. Tom Brashada, who was a board member and is running unopposed for an empty seat, so he will be a board member. So I just think it makes sense, and this is something that he's been very vocal about, not only here, but at council meetings as well. And I think Mrs. Batko and Mr. Brashada together at the council meeting will be a formidable team to be able to relay the message about the board's preference when it comes to establishing pilot programs for developments in town. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
And I will also attend those meetings for the support of that. So I think that's a meeting that, so if we could have the minutes reflect, Mr. Board Secretary, that a new committee is being established, the pilot committee consisting of Mrs. Batko, Mrs. Bloom, and future board member, Mr. Brashada.
Mr. McEnroe, we actually need a motion to form the committee. The appointments are yours, but the bylaws require a motion to form the committee.
Well, why don't you say so
I
moved?
will make a motion to form a new pilot
Okay.
committee
I need a
as
second.
a ad hoc committee.
I need a vote.
Motion by Mr. Sayer. Who was the second?
Mrs. DePinto.
Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Batko?
Yes.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Sayak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mrs. Strapp?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McEnroe?
Yes, it will make for good TV, Mrs. Batko.
Thank you, Mike.
Congratulations on your new appointment.
I have something.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
The scoreboard for the all-purpose field, when is that expected to arrive and be installed?
September 11th.
It's
Okay.
arriving and being installed the first game.
No, that's a dedication.
That's
isn't it?
It's dedication, when,
What?
I believe the new scoreboard for the field is,
All I know is that it's,
in the process of being
conversation
installed.
that I've had with Mr. Pantoliano, is that he stressed and emphasized that scoreboard better be installed before the football game, because he's not the person leading the charge with it. He's involved, but other people have made decisions to take down the old scoreboard and the installation process. But I do know from conversation with Mr. Pantaleano, he stressed to ensure that that scoreboard is installed.
Has it arrived? I was under the impression it should have arrived by now.
I have no knowledge if it's arrived or not.
I'm just envisioning the old board down and the new board not up.
That's going to be a problem.
You know, so by next board meeting, let's have a schedule, and if there's no guarantee that that could be installed and in place by the first game, it probably should not go in until after the season.
And
You know what I'm saying?
and we should also
I'm sharing with you the only information I have.
Well, and I'm sharing with you what the
I
desire of the
understand.
board is, that we don't want to have this problem, because I can imagine how that will be interpreted.
And we should also clarify the first game, because it is an all-purpose field, and I really don't want us to plan a scoreboard install around the first football game when there may be a home soccer game or something before that, especially since it's dedicated in memory of Matthew Wellner.
And we don't have a very good track record of installing things and then working the first time.
Well,
Not
so-
fault of yours or anybody in this room, but you know what I'm saying? It's just something that I don't like to keep for granted, that we need to be on top of that, keep asking the questions, and holding certain people accountable, that gets done on time.
And the dedications should be at a boys' home soccer game.
I thought it was supposed to be.
We've already had
Well,
this
that
conversation.
discussion, this is something that
Well-
the people that were part of
Sure.
the process wanted to do.
Well,
They
let's
wanted
get
to-
installed before we dedicate it.
One thing on the plus side, it's supposed to be wireless, so the installation shouldn't be as
Oh,
big of a deal.
I feel much
So
better.
that should help a bit.
Okay.
So now when I open my garage door, the score is going to change.
We just don't have a good track record with electrical signs. It's just, all right. Any other questions before I open up for the public? Any other discussion? So at this time, I'd like to open up for the public. If any questions or business may come before this board, please come up, state your name and record if you'd like to speak. Hurry up, Ms. Kilcummins, hurry up, hurry up.
Barbara Kilcummins. Speaking of signs, I just want to comment about the sign out front. I'm thrilled to see that it said Board of Education meeting tonight. I saw orientation, other than Go Bombers, or drive safely. So please extend to Mr. Brown my thanks that it's up and running and the community thanks him. Thank you.
We do listen to you, Barbara, at times. At times.
And I'll reserve my comments about the SRO.
Okay.
Okay, my only comment on the SRO was great discussion. Love to see more of it in public. The pilot committee, right? I love to lock horns with those people too. So if you get to a point in time where Mr. Bashada is no longer public and he's Board of Ed and you have to make a change by some dopey law, right? I'd love to get involved and mix that up, right? When's the roof in high school going to be done?
Video.
That's a loaded question because I had no idea we were doing anything with the
Video.
roof until someone just asked me this.
As Mr. Bowker indicated at the last meeting, Mr. Pantaleano reported that the roofing contractors were going to double the manpower. They do know that school starts on the 1st, and they're making every effort to ensure that the building is complete by that date. As far as the roofing, there may be the aluminum trim and things of that nature that may still go on after the school, but they are scheduled to try and complete the project prior to the opening of school.
Sounds great to me. Hopefully everybody else. Right? I did want to get back up. You offered me the opportunity to get back up after that discussion
Yeah,
on
sure, right.
the merit, but you don't need to see me up here twice. I'll be quick on that topic, right? I'm glad you finally got to the logistics of maybe you got to move the measurement timetable, because all this comes down to is if Dr. Labby has met or exceeded the goals you've set for him, figure out a way to pay him. Whether you got to get the scores in October, you get them in January, figure out how to get them paid. But going back to Jonathan, this board does a better than most job in this area of giving us information to the public. If they were doing a great job at it, we wouldn't have been so much questions from the board itself. So transparent, maybe, could be better. I think so. And maybe all those other districts just are horrible at this. Okay? That's a possibility.
Not my client.
Oh, now we call your clients, then we know they're horrible. Okay? Right? But, full transparency on that and pay the guy if he's met his achievements, right? Now, and this isn't to stroke Dr. Labby because he hates me now for whatever I said an hour ago. I was going to plan to discuss this comment anyway, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room that 68 petitioners are not here to address, okay? But I guess that's why the uniformed officer is here. I can't believe it's because Art Rittenhouse is afraid of me again, right? From about 10 years ago, right?
And he's in charge of the pilot committee for the town too, so maybe this
On our side or the town
on their
side?
side.
On our side.
On the town side.
On the town. Oh, please get me on that committee. Right? And the media as well, besides the uniformed gentleman.
We anticipated a lot of media coverage, and that's why.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool, right? And this might end in a question, it might not, it might be a bold restatement, but here we go. Not going to address any of the specificity to what may or may not have happened in the locker room in this building at any point in time in the past. But I am going to address, because this afternoon someone sent me the petition, because I'm not kind of in the loop in this town. I didn't know there was such a thing, to try and go after integrity charges and ethics charges on Dr. Labby, the board. Here we go. 68 petitioners have signed it in 8 days. In the first paragraph, the words, "Many people in this town think this way." I'm pretty good at math. Many does not equal 68 out of the population in this town, right? The starter of the petition is anonymous, okay? God, please stand behind your words, okay? They talk about inaccurate statements Dr. Labby made, which were proven to be inaccurate in the court of law. I need some more on that. Whoever's behind these words, please stand up and be proud of them if your words. I'm always proud of mine, okay? Then we get to a Board of Ed member, right? Former Board of Ed member, I apologize, who makes quotes of, "This whole situation was created by people with a vested interest to change the football coach, and was all premeditated." Okay? Right? I don't know if I got a copy of the whole thing here. I had to read it on the way over here, right? Those comments are just outlandish and need to be supported. The Board of Ed member does identify herself, okay? The anonymous quotes do not. I'm going to say this in a nutshell, no specificity whatsoever. Did the board and Dr. Labby make every decision correct? Who knows? Did they do a good enough job? I think they did, okay? They were dealt a tough hand, and they made tough decisions, right? If there was a problem of jumping to conclusions or being hasty, it wasn't these 10, 11, 12 people, whatever you're counting up there. It was the prosecutor in this county, okay? And that's where any venom that people may have about how this has hurt individuals, hurt the town, hurt our reputation, it needs to be directed at the prosecutor of Middlesex County, not the 10 people on this board. I hope the people behind this petition watch this, Say TV, or wherever the hell we were on. It's broadcast somewhere, right?
What's that?
This shows up on the TV somewhere? Somebody help me out.
Yeah, it is. It's, I don't know, when is it? You watch them, when is it?
No, I attend them live, so I don't watch the reruns.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch them either, but I think so. I don't know if they're in the room here or not. But, okay, hopefully.
John,
Yeah, I got you.
John, now stay there, John. I mean.
And September 11th, what are we afraid is going to happen at the game? No offense to Brian back there and his colleagues. Build a corral and put them in a corral.
September, what are you talking about?
September 11th, the first football game when the media is going to create a frenzy in the parking lot here.
Well, we have our plans for that.
Yeah, I just put them in I get them access, put them up in the pen.
All I can say to you about that petition, people that know me, people I'm related to, people I associate with, want to know why I'm not upset about those things. Because, the people that the day before this thing happened didn't even know my name. And now, based on all the tweets, and I have a whole book of them, and all the Facebook comments and all those things, I'm moronic, I'm corrupt, and all these other things. And the question I always ask, look, and I have nothing against these people. They're not bad people. They're angry. It's emotional. I don't think there's anybody more angry than me for what happened in our school, in our locker room. Okay? And these people that are so outraged, that we're incompetent and corrupt, 2 weeks ago, the petitions closed out to run for the Board of Education.
Correct.
And I didn't see any of those names. And I surmise the reason is because it's so much easier to criticize than to be correct. On the day after this happened, I was absolutely convinced that something happened in those locker rooms. Now I know, for an absolute fact, there were many criminal acts that happened in that locker room. I know that for a fact. And if I'm guilty of anything, I'm guilty of having a lot more information than the big mouths and the critics. And any fool can criticize, and most fools do. And I've been very silent about this. okay, and I've been respectful of our attorney, our insurance company, and the victims, but nobody's ever mentioned the victim. And this has been involved in a program who always pride themselves on commitment and character. You know what? I haven't seen any character. I haven't seen anybody stand up and own for what happened in there when I have a piece of paper that tells me exactly what happened there. And I'm hoping that the county prosecutor, I'm not a prosecutor, I don't know if he overcharged these kids, but I saw what the results of that is. And I'm hoping somewhere down the line that the county prosecutor is going to make that public. So I think it's very unfair for attorneys, and I'm not really a fan of attorneys, except the ones that work for me. But an individual made some comments out there that were blatantly false, absolutely blatantly false, and everybody ran with that. The ex-board member who didn't know anything when they were on the board absolutely doesn't know anything more now. Absolutely false, and the prosecutor publicly, and I guess everybody missed that, soon after that made a public statement condemning those comments because they were blatantly untrue. And that's the disadvantage this board has. I'm going to respect the law, and I'm going to respect the privacy of juveniles. And the county prosecutor made it very clear, very unequivocal, there's no ambiguity there that we're not to talk about those specific charges related to an individual. And I'm going to respect that. But for somebody to say that's a defense attorney that my client didn't get accused of anything, oh, yeah, well, then tell us what he was convicted of. And then the phone hangs up. We don't want to talk about that. That's what we're up against. And that's why people who may not have all the information want to accuse us of, and the things they mentioned, talked about Dr. Labby, I haven't heard since I was in the service. The comments and the things they use. And it's all based on misinformation and what goes around Facebook. And I've been silent long enough, and I'm not going to be silent anymore about this. And I'm going to bring myself right up to the point where I can't talk about certain things because the law prohibits me from. But if it didn't, I'd be singing like a canary, and a lot of people would be saying a lot of apologies. But I'm telling you right now, on the record, at a public meeting, on camera, that I know for a fact criminal activity occurred in that locker room. There's no doubt about it. And everybody that's sitting there saying nothing happened, it's a bunch of crap. And the petition says that they're writing this petition because we, the board and the superintendent, made this town look bad. I don't think that's correct. We're not the ones that made this town look bad. It was all the people that the press like they get on TV shooting their mouths off, void of any information, especially ex-board members. I would will you to bet, John, that if we did nothing after that information, you have to remember, and I'll say as a public, we didn't go to the police, we didn't go to anybody, we didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm sitting there waiting, making plans for my friend Ted to go to a game. I get a phone call, the game's canceled because the prosecutor's office is investigating criminal activity in our locker room. So what are we supposed to do as responsible adults? Play football? Is that what we're supposed to do? And what happens if we did that, and then 2 weeks later, on a Friday evening at 9 o'clock, 7 arrests were made? Well, that would have been nice at a game, wouldn't it? Hey, yeah, give me number this one, this one, this one, and this one to come in with us. And if we didn't do anything, if we did nothing, and then those arrests happened, there'd be a petition ousting us, and I bet you there'd be thousands of signatures on there. Because if anybody ever wants to fault me for protecting kids, I'll die on that hill, no doubt about it. But that's what I'm in the business of doing. Okay? And I'm waiting for somebody to own up and say, yeah, you know what, I screwed up, I'll take my medicine, and let's press on. But now we got a new coach, we got a new touchdown club leadership, and they're interested in going on to the future. And that's what we need to be concentrating on. And everybody that wants to make all these accusations, where are they? Why didn't they run for the board? Okay, that's what we're up against. And, you know, and my armor doesn't kink, and I'll continue to take that because I know for a fact what happened in that locker room. And I just wish that I could tell you, but I cannot. And I'm going to respect that because that's the bottom line. As far as Dr. Labby concerns, I give him a hell of a lot of credit because of what he had to withstand within the first 3 months of him being here and still be able to press on and make all these improvements academically, and he deserves every one of those dollars bonuses that he got. And I'll tell you that right now. And since I've been on this board, this is the best hire I've made. I support kids. I protect victims. That's what I do. And if anybody wants to challenge me anytime, any place about it with the facts, I have the facts. They don't have the facts. But social media has made it worse. And things on there, it's just blatantly wrong. But, it's just what it is, John. And I'm glad that you come up and you support this. You're a reasonable guy. And although sometimes we don't always agree with you, but I'll tell you, you're consistent. You're consistently honest. And I'm going to fight the fight. Anybody wants to challenge me on it, I got the facts. And I'm going to err on the side of saving kids. And that's what the story's about.
Well said.
I feel better now, John, that you allowed me to get that off my chest.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know what's going to be soapbox.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Well, I hate to follow up on that because...
Then don't. Anybody else? Oh.
Because you spoke so well about it, but I'll say those 68 people that signed the petition, half of them don't live in town. I don't even know where they're coming from. I don't know what they may or may not know about the situation, as well as the other half who obviously don't know a lot about it. So,
All I know in town, in the latest census, there's 42,235 people in town. They got 65 signatures. I wouldn't be bragging about that.
And Mr. McEnroe, the only thing I'll add is I think it's time that we move on.
Roger.
I think it's time that we put this to bed. We've got a new season starting. We've got a new school year starting. And I think that it's time that we move ahead and we not discuss this again at another meeting.
Then I'll take a motion for adjournment.
so moved.
Second.